Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to day 3 of our back to school month here in September 2022. My 30 most played and my 30 favorite albums of my high school years. My high school years are 1980 to 1984. We're asking everybody here watching to also pick your 30 favorite albums from your high school years, whatever 4 years that might be, right? So down in the comments each and every day, please let me know what your next album is from your high school years, as well as if you want to comment on my pick each day. That's totally cool. So these are going to be the most played albums during my 4 years in college. Didn't have to be released during those 4 years, but the ones that really helped get me through those 4 years of school. My 30 favorites, all right, the ones that I played the most, the ones that had the most impact on me, the ones that to this day I still feel that influence of those records on my youth, right? And I'm going to limit myself to just 2 picks from any one band. Because like I said in the first couple episodes, I could easily have all 30 of my slots filled up by 4 or 5 bands, and I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to try and spread the wealth a little bit. So you'll only see a maximum of 2 albums from any one band. And there's a good guess this band might pop up again throughout the month, once more at least. And this particular album released December 8th, 1972. All right, for Purple Records. I think you know what I'm talking about. It's by far my most played live album from the years 1980-84. One of my favorite live albums of all time. It is, of course, Made in Japan from Deep Purple. So this, of course, was recorded in Japan, all right, August 15th and 16th, 1972, as well as the 17th, 1972, at the various venues, right? This is culled from a bunch of different performances. The Festival Hall in Osaka, Japan, the Nippon Budokan in Tokyo, and, of course, the lineup featuring Richie Blackmore on guitar, Ian Gillan on vocals, Roger Glover on bass, Ian Pace on drums, and, of course, the late, great John Lord on Hammond organ. So, I've talked about this album a lot over the years. I love telling stories about this record. I played this constantly. And at the time when I acquired this album, this was not the first Deep Purple album I ever picked up. It was actually the second. So the other album that actually got me into the band, that I played quite a bit early on in the decade of the 80s during my high school years, I was a compilation, and I'll talk about that in a future episode this month. But this was actually the second album that I picked up. And what's interesting is during my high school years, I actually didn't go and buy a lot of the other Purple albums until I hit college. And then I started scooping up Purple albums left and right. So like early on, during my high school years, I basically was that compilation in this album and another live album actually, were the 3 Purple albums that I got first and I listened to nonstop. And like, it's funny because we were talking about this on the Hudson Valley Squares last week, and Steve Keeler also mentioned that a lot of his introductory albums to a lot of the bands he grew to love were live albums, and I was very much in the same ballpark there as well. A lot of the first albums I got from a lot of my favorite bands were those classic live albums, and those were like live greatest hit sets. And I played those constantly, and that was always my gateway into some of these great bands, was the live albums first. So this, like I said, I listened to this all the time. When I got this, it coincided with me moving out of the bedroom with my brother in my parents' house and moving down to the basement into my own room. And the basement room was a really big room. I had posters all over the wall, Kiss posters, and then eventually Led Zeppelin and Rush and Purple and Sabbath and all, Judas Priest, Maiden, all that sort of stuff, all over the walls, and had my cheap little stereo down there. And when I went and picked this up, I was absolutely blown away, because here you had songs that I knew, which were on that compilation. Pretty sure all of them were, yeah. But here, these were different versions. These were live versions. The band stretched out a little bit more. And I used to sit, and I told this story again on the Hudson Valley Squares recently, how this was like my go-to album. When I was, again, a teenager, first starting to get into alcohol, I used to, steal liquor and stuff from the parents' liquor cabinet, and whenever the folks and my brother would go, my brother was playing soccer. I remember specifically, my brother was a big soccer player when he was in school, and he had practice or games like almost every day during the school year. So my father worked in New York City, and my mother would go and take my brother to practice and games, and she'd always ask me if I wanted to go, and I'd be like, nah, I don't want to go. It's all right, I'll stay home. I got homework to do. Yeah, right. My homework was listening to Made in Japan and sipping a little bit of whatever I would, pour into a little very fine juice container and hide under my bed, and I would get taken to another place. So I would catch a little buzz on whatever I drank, and I would put this on, and I would actually crank it up, and I would sit in front of the stereo with the LP with the two speakers on either side of me, and I would sit and get off on Highway Star. I would sing along and scream along with Ian to Child in Time, do an air guitar and air Hammond organ, Smoke on the Water, The Mule, Strange Kind of Woman, Lazy, Space Truckin'. I remember that the whole, half-hour version of Space Truckin' would just totally blow my mind. And I would listen to this album over and over and over and over again and never get tired of it. To the point where I would always, like, in my mind, I would always have these conversations like, well, do you like the studio versions of these songs better than the live versions or vice versa? And I would totally like pick apart them both to figure out which I like more and what was different. And the great thing about Ritchie Blackmore back in the day is he would never play a guitar solo the same way twice. So a lot of times my favorite between the studio and the live versions would be based on which guitar solo from Ritchie I liked better. And I would analyze all this stuff, just really crazy stuff that you think about when you're a kid, when you're first getting into these things. So yeah, Made in Japan. Absolutely, and I'm losing my voice here already the first thing in the morning. Love this album to death. Still can listen to this, and it brings a smile to my face. And one of the great live albums of all time. I always love the kind of go for it attitude on these early Purple live albums. They just, we have these great studio songs. We're going to recreate them live on stage, but we're just going to go with it and take it to whatever place it's going to go to. These guys were great improvisers, and fantastic stuff. So there you have it. Day 3 of my 30 favorite albums of my high school years. It's back to school month. It's Deep Purple, Made in Japan. A magical, magical, magical album. One of the great live albums of all time and one of the great bands of all time. So let us know your pick for day 3 here, as well as any thoughts you might have on the Made in Japan album. Again, this was a trusty companion through those 4 years of school for me, and into my college years and still to this day. So a lot of these have not changed, and they still remain favorites of mine. I may not listen to them as much as I used to, but they still are a part of my DNA. So 1980, 1984. We got plenty more coming, so stay tuned each and every day here this month. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Please hit that like button before you leave. Very, very important. And down below, we've got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, as well as our merch page, where you can get all sorts of cool Sea of Tranquility stuff. And don't forget, we are less than a month away from Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest 2022 at the Chance of Poughkeepsie, New York, October 1st. A full day of fun. Doors open at noon. We've got on the small stage during the afternoon, we're going to recreate all the, or a good chunk of the Sea of Tranquility panel shows that we do. We got kicking things off within the Prague seat, in front of an audience, Hudson Valley Squares in front of an audience. Myself and Martin Popoff will be at the Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon Funhouse talking to you guys on that day. We've got Chris Caffrey from Sabotage and Trans-Siberian Orchestra doing a Q&A with the folks in attendance, as well as Andy Powell from Wishbone Ash. And then we've got music from Sonus Umbra, Epic Tantrum, 2 great prog bands. Louis Nasser is featured in Sonus Umbra. We've also got the classics. We've got the Pat Travers Band, Vanilla Fudge, that's right, Carmine Apiece will be in the house, and the legendary prog act Nectar. So that's coming up on October 1st. Please get your tickets now, and we hope to see you there. A good chunk of the Sea of Tranquility panelists will be on hand on SOT Fall Fest Day, so we look forward to meeting and hanging out with all of you, and we'll see you tomorrow morning with another back-to-school day, one of my 30 favorite albums from my high school years, 1980 to 84, and we'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.